Holocaust and our own personal story, and hopefully teach us some meaningful lessons. And then you will have an opportunity at the end to ask questions. When we get to that portion of the event, you will queue over there, and when it's your turn, you'll come sit in the chair here and introduce yourself and ask your question. Betty Zaret is here to formally introduce our guest, but prior to that, our 8th grader Nathan has prepared a poem about the Holocaust that he would like to share. So, Nathan.
Good morning, Ms. Glatz. My name is Nathan DeMays, and when we were learning about the Holocaust in class, I guess it really stuck with me to a deeper level. So while everybody else was writing their questions for Mr. Milberg, I decided to write this. It goes, if I asked you about the Holocaust, you say it's in the past. Well, what would you do if I told you that the effects still last? 6 million lives were ended, too much for me to bear. Imagine if you saw 6 million die. Imagine if you were there. All those businesses and murders on the night of Kristallnacht, all those businesses and murders, but some no longer give a thought. You learn about it in school, it doesn't really stick. You gotta learn about it yourself for it to really click. You put it all on one person, we all know the name, but truthfully that one person is not alone to blame. Thousands watched, but no one said word, and meanwhile they were controlling all that was seen and heard. Their passports had no value without that stamp of shame. Their passports had no value, their location remained the same. You may ask, what does he know? He's just a kid. But I believe no matter what your lifestyle, everyone deserves to live. I yearn to see the outcomes of all those different minds. If those kids could have had a future, they could have cured the blind. Those medicines and inventions that we will never see, 6 million different thoughts, anchored by a murder spree. I thank all the survivors for being formidable and brave, and I send Moria to all the people who were given an early grave. If you ask me about the Holocaust, I would say the effects were vast. But if I ask you about the Holocaust, would you say it's in the past? And then I signed this. I think you would like to have this copy, so I would like to formally give it to you.
Thank you so much.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, Nathan, but that was absolutely beautiful and so heartfelt. And I'm going to ask Mr. Baker and you permission, if you want, you don't have to, but would you like to have your poem published in our Jewish News newspaper? And you can get a byline. It would be great for your college application.
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, great. I'd be so honored to be able to publish that. Yeah. So are we ready to get started? Okay, so I'm actually going to, do you have a clicker or am I going to ask you to click the slides?
I got one.
Okay, so my name is Betty Zaret. I'm in charge of the Holocaust Education Initiative for the Jewish Federation in Sarasota, Florida. And my goal is to help raise awareness not only of the Holocaust, but the invaluable lessons of the Holocaust among the community at large, among teachers, and among students. And hopefully to be able to impress upon you the importance of understanding the Holocaust and knowing how critically important it is in today's world, as I started to say earlier, of how we all have a role to play in trying to foster peace and being inclusive and being accepting and understanding of people who are different than we are. And in that way, we can all really live in a more harmonious and, I would say, peaceful world. So let me, if I may, just say a couple of things about children during the Holocaust. You've heard, perhaps, that 6 million Jewish people were murdered in the Holocaust. Have you heard that? You've all studied that? And that represents 2/3 of all of the Jews in Europe. And at the beginning of World War II, we'll go to the next slide, there were, starting in September 1939, there were 1.6 million Jewish children living in the areas that the Germans occupied, Germans and their allies occupied. And at the end of World War II, there were only 100,000 who survived. That means 1.5 million children were murdered during the Holocaust by the Nazis and their collaborators. And these are all children aged 16 or less. So, how old are you?
13.
So just imagine, look around, if this was 1939, most of you would no longer exist. So let's go to the next slide. So of those who survived, they were, a lot of them say they were lucky. But I say that many of them had inner strength, had courage, all expressed incredible resilience to get through adversity and difficult situations. And they all had hope, but they also had help from others. And so they all say they were lucky. And some were escaped, some were rescued, and some were hidden. And those who helped them, who helped save Jews, children or otherwise, always put themselves at risk because it was against the law to save a Jewish person during the Holocaust. Penalty of death to not only you, but your family. So these people really rose above what the community was saying, and they wanted to do the right thing by saving Jewish people because they say it was the right thing to do. So, but as I started, I said to a few of you, those who did survive actually suffered not only during the Holocaust in a significant way, but also after the Holocaust, because many of them lost all their families, they changed their names, they changed their religion, they didn't know who they were, they didn't know where they belonged, and they didn't know what to do or where to go after the Holocaust. So it was really a lifetime of suffering and of deep trauma, and so many of our survivors and their children still have remnants of this trauma that they experienced during the Holocaust. So, as I said, those who were saved had terrible hardships. Again, they had false papers, different names. Sometimes they had to change their hiding places if they were hidden. They, as I mentioned, different religion. And sometimes they had different rescuers, because if a rescuer got spooked and said, oh, I'm going to get caught, or somebody told on them, then they had to transfer that child or that family to somebody else who could save them. So sometimes they had multiple rescuers. Not all the rescuers were nice, and so that was difficult. They, as I mentioned, they were separated from their family. They weren't allowed to have education, a proper education. And so for, the 5 years or 6 years or sometimes a little bit less that they were in the Holocaust and they were hidden or they had to escape, they missed school, and so afterward they had a lot to catch up on. And they lived every minute of every day of being discovered. And not only their rescuers or those who helped them escape, but they themselves were afraid that any second somebody was going to come and take them and send them away. And so even after the war was over and they were liberated, as I mentioned, they were looking for their families, they were looking where to go. They oftentimes had no homes, nowhere to go. They didn't even know what country they necessarily were from. Next. So an upstander, have you all heard the term an upstander? Yeah, if I can, it's a person who speaks or acts in support of an individual or a cause, particularly someone who intervenes on behalf of a person being attacked or bullied. So the upstander who saved children, there was a small number of Jewish children who were saved by both Jews and non-Jews during the Holocaust with extraordinary acts of bravery and kindness. They demonstrated uncommon decency, and they helped kids escape, and they also hid them in a lot of different places, and some of them even took them into forests or in barns to hide, and it was really quite an extraordinary act. And these people are considered upstanders because they didn't stand by to watch it happen. So when you think about people who stand by, they say, oh, that's a terrible thing, but I don't want to get involved, I don't want to do anything, but these people did something. So you've heard this term, if you see something, say something. That means that you would be an upstander. This is a video of a gentleman who is an extraordinary upstander. He's British. His name is Sir Nicholas Winton, and I just would like you to hear the story of his act of bravery.
This is his scrapbook. There are all kinds of fascinating pictures in it. Perhaps you can see, this is a picture of Nicholas Winton himself with one of the children he rescued. If you look at the very back of this scrapbook, fascinating things in it, all the letters. But back here is the list of all the children. This is Vera Diamond, now Vera Gissing. We did find her name on his list. Vera Gissing is with us here tonight. Hello, Vera. And I should tell you that you are actually sitting next to Nicholas Winton.
I wore this around my neck, and this is the actual pass that we were given to come to England, and another of the children that you saved.
Can I ask, is there anyone in our audience tonight who owes their life to Nicholas Winton? If so, could you stand up, please?
So Nicholas Winton was a kind and gentle man, and all he wanted to do was do the right thing. So Elie Wiesel, I don't know, you probably haven't read any of his books yet, but you will in high school. He was a Holocaust survivor, became an educator, and he was insistent on telling the story. He said, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And so he really, does that make sense to you? So he really said that we should all care, not only about ourselves, but we should care about our friends, our families, and each other. And that way, maybe we can find some peace around the world. So let's keep going. And I have the incredible opportunity to introduce Rifka Glatz, who actually was rescued. And she'll tell the story of how she was rescued and how lucky she was, she and her mother and brother, how lucky they were to have been rescued during the Holocaust. So let's give a warm welcome for Rifka Glatz.
I will start with the word shalom. In Hebrew, the word shalom, I don't know if anybody knows the meaning.
Closer to your mouth, sweetheart.
I can't.
Close to your mouth.
The word shalom means peace. This is the word how we greet each other in Israel. We go into a home, we say shalom. We leave, we say shalom. We meet a friend in the street, we say shalom. And so I am saying shalom to you, and it means peace. The word itself means peace. I was born in Hungary in 1937. My family, as you can see, my father, my mother, my brother, and I were a small family, but both my parents came from very large families. My mother was one of 8 children, and my father was one of 13 children. The grandparents on both sides were very religious Jews, Orthodox Jews. And they raised the children that way, keeping all the rules and regulations that Judaism brings. It's how you behave, how you treat each other, how you go to synagogue, how you observe the holidays, and above all else, I don't know if you ever heard the word kosher. In Judaism, the way we eat, those who observe seriously Judaism, they will never mix meat and dairy. The same meal, we don't eat it. You don't cook meat with cheese. And above everything else, there were only certain animals that you could eat. Cows, sheep, chicken, and in the fish, it had to have fins and scales. No shellfish are allowed to be eaten. And that's what's called kosher. But it's also a separation of hours between a meat meal to a dairy meal. So those who observe, they really observe it, and they don't even put it on the same dish. They have separate dishes for dairy and separate dishes for meat. Well, I grew up in that kind of a home because both my parents came from that kind of a house. But my parents were a little more lenient. What gives God? My brother was a very talented, he's 7.5 years older than I am. He is a very talented young man. He's an artist, a sculptor. He really was quite brilliant. I was just a little sister, and all I finished in Hungary was kindergarten. My birthday is late in October, and I was just about to enter first grade when the Germans entered Hungary. And within a short period of time, they annihilated a good portion of Hungarian Jewry. They shipped them to Auschwitz, which was a death camp. They came to Auschwitz, into the gas chambers, and from there, they would burn their bodies, and you never see them again in their life. Very few people survived Auschwitz. When they came to Hungary, it was towards the end of the war, and there was a gentleman by the name of Kastner.
Can I hold this for you?
Yeah.
I can hold it.
No, just. His name was Rifka Kastner. You see? And Kastner was a Jewish man who dealt with Eichmann. Eichmann was a major Nazi. And he begged Eichmann not to send this portion of Jews to Auschwitz. My parents moved from one city to another because they had a bakery, and the bakery was taken away from them. And my father's oldest brother, lived in what is called Kolozsvár, Cluj today, but Kolozsvár, and said, come to Kolozsvár and you will make a living here. So we moved. We moved to a house, an attached home, that had a bedroom and a kitchen and a pantry. My mother used to bathe me in a porcelain bowl that she put in the dining room table and put some warm water and put me in the bowl to bathe me. They bathed in a wooden tub in the pantry, and the toilets were outside, shared by all the residents. So luxury it was not. But all we did, we slept there, we ate there, and we went to a Jewish school. My brother was already in middle school, high school, and I was still in kindergarten. And what gives God? Before we knew it, my father was taken into forced labor camp, and we never saw him again alive. He was taken away. And my mother knew that one of these days they'll come for us. She prepared a knapsack, and in the knapsack she put unbreakable dishes, a change of clothes, and maybe a little bit of food, and that was it. And before we knew it, they came for us. And I see it in front of my eyes to this day. Out of the house, and with the knapsack on our back, they came and put a board diagonally across the door. This was yours, now it's ours. So whatever little or a lot we had, all stayed behind. They put us on a truck and brought us to a brickyard factory. And in the brickyard factory, we slept for quite a few weeks underground, and minimal food was given. Before we knew it, they put us on a train and took us to Germany, to Bergen-Belsen. Bergen-Belsen was a horrendous concentration camp, but we remained alive. The living conditions were like this, what you see. One above the other. The men were separated from the women. The boys were with the men, and the girls were with the women. But this was the living condition. You see? This is how they slept. And we were not allowed out of our bunks until the morning. So they had buckets in case you needed to pee or poop. You had to stay inside. Otherwise, in the morning, when they allowed us out of the barracks, they had toilets. But just imagine that as you are sitting, there is a toilet here, here, and here, opened, no wall dividing, no doors closing. You had to go in front of other people. I can't imagine nowadays something this horrendous. And I can imagine that you can feel that when you go to the bathroom, you need your privacy. You don't need anybody looking at you and observing what you are doing. I will never forget one of my mother's friends was standing in front of one of those toilets outside, and she was crying. And I said, "Mom, she's crying. Why is she crying?" And my mother went over, put her arms, "What happened? Why are you crying?" She said, "I looked down the toilet and my glasses fell into the toilet." And of course it was deep. You cannot reach and pick it up. And as young as I was, I really feel it to this day because my mother couldn't see without her glasses. And the thought that she would lose her glasses was horrendous. So these memories remain with me, and all the sights that I saw. Every day they lined us up, counted us to see what's happening. I turned 7 years old in Bergen-Belsen. I still have not learned how to read or write. I missed my first grade. When they finally, the war was over, and they released us, it was towards December. And when we came out of the concentration camp, we didn't know where we are going to go. Kastner was a diplomat, a Hungarian Jewish diplomat. I showed you here, you can see his face. And this is his book about all that he has done to release us. Kastner worked with Eichmann and begged him to release us, but we didn't know where to go. Nobody wanted to go back to Hungary because the way the Hungarian treated us was not better than what the German did. And we couldn't enter. Israel didn't exist yet. Palestine, which was the ancient city, the ancient country of Israel, from thousands of years ago, it was Israel. The Palestinians would not allow us into Palestine, and the Palestinians were ruled by the British, and the British wouldn't allow us in. So Kastner begged the Swiss government from Switzerland to allow us into Switzerland for a period of time until we were able to go to Palestine to be. And here we are traveling to Switzerland. You see the kids. We were taken by cattle cars, where they take cattle. There were no seats, no bathrooms in the cars. So we were traveling to Switzerland, and we literally went from hell to heaven. They were so nice to us, and they brought us into this gorgeous hotel. You see the hotel? They brought us into this gorgeous hotel in Cove, Switzerland. We literally went from hell to heaven, and treated us so nicely. Many years ago, when I was a married woman already, I traveled with my husband, and I said, we must go to Switzerland. We need to see where we were taken. And we went to Cove and walked into the hotel. And I said, please, what was this hotel that you accepted us as refugees? And they said, this was the hotel for European royalty, who used to come to Switzerland for winter sports, to ski, to skate, to do all kinds of winter sports. But during the war, even the royalty did not travel. So the hotel was empty, and they allowed these 1,300 some odd Jews, children and adults, to enter Switzerland. And we were taken to the mountain to recuperate, and we were fed and taken care of. Next. When we went back, behind the hotel, they put this flag in remembrance of the Jewish refugees who stayed here and of those who were not admitted to enter Switzerland during World War II. We shall not forget. And they planted, you don't see the tree, but they planted a tree next to it. And it's to this day, it's behind the hotel. And I tell you, I'm eternally grateful to the Swiss government. While we were there, finally, the British allowed us into Palestine. So we arrived to Palestine. And by now, the travel from there, I have a passport, I can show it to you, but a little passport with my picture on it and my date of birth to allow us to enter Israel. Israel didn't exist yet, Palestine. This is on the way to Palestine, to get on the train, to take us to Italy, to get on a ship to Palestine. And this lady here is my mother. It just so happens that she happens to be in this picture. I must have been on a train someplace. And we arrived in Palestine. Now, we had nothing but the backpack on my mother's back and on my back and my brother's back. We didn't have anything, no money, no food, nothing. The Jewish community in Palestine survived by creating communal settlements, which are called a kibbutz. The kibbutz, the group of parents and adults got together with their children, and they created a home. The adults slept in one bedroom, and the children were in dormitories. They, according to age, 4 girls to a room, 4 boys to a room, and very well taken care of. And we arrived 4 Hungarian kids. I don't need to tell you that this is me because I'm the shortest. And Naomi and her brother Shraga and another boy. And when we were in the kibbutz, children visited their parents in the afternoon after they came back from work. Every adult had a job. Some were chefs, some were guards, some took care of the chickens, some of the cows, some of the agriculture. They created things that they could sell outside and make a living. And every child that did not have a parents in the kibbutz was assigned to a family. So I was assigned to this gentleman who was originally from Poland. He survived and came. He lost his wife and his daughter Edna, and this is me. They were my family in the kibbutz. In the afternoon, when the kids visited their parents, I went with Edna to visit her father. He was the shoemaker in the kibbutz. Everybody had a job. But really, I got to the kibbutz, and I was almost 8 years old, 7.5 years old. And I started first grade in a language that I didn't speak. I didn't know how to read and write in Hebrew, and I didn't know how to speak. But in no time at all, I learned. And Hebrew is written from right to left. I wish I could show you, but it's written from right to left, and the alphabet is entirely different. It's as if though you would read Chinese, you know? The Hebrew lettering is entirely different than the English. What gives God? I stayed in a kibbutz for 3 years. And after 3 years, my mother notified me. My mother was in a hotel for women in Haifa, in the city of Haifa, which is the fourth city in Israel. And my brother was sent to a different kibbutz because he was so much older. He was sent to a kibbutz that had kids his age. And my mother notified me that she remarried. We knew already by this time that my father was murdered in forced labor camp. He did not survive. His brother-in-law was with him, and he survived, and he came home and notified us that he was dead. He came home to find that his wife and 2 daughters were taken to Auschwitz and murdered in Auschwitz. That was the era of such big pain between families when family members just disappeared and were killed. What can I tell you? We arrived to Israel, and when my mother notified me that she got married, she married a Hungarian Jewish man who lost his wife and 2 daughters in the war. He didn't even have a picture of them left, because when he was taken to forced labor camp, he didn't take anything with him. He survived, and his family was taken to Auschwitz and murdered. That was the era of horror for every one of us. When my mother got married, she brought me back from the kibbutz to be with them. And I entered 4th grade. In the middle of, by now, I spoke Hebrew well, I read, I was able to read and write in Hebrew. And in the middle of 4th grade, they pushed me up to 5th grade. So I made that up the year that I lost. Thank God. And time went on, and I met my husband. He went to a vocational school for boys for high school, and I went to a vocational school for girls. He was studying engineering, and I was studying children's fashion design. And we have some Jewish holidays. And one of the Jewish holidays is a fun holiday where you get dressed in costumes. The name of the holiday is Purim, and you celebrate. And my class invited my husband's class, because they were all boys and we were all girls, invited to our school for a Purim party.
You're speaking with your hands so
Yes,
nobody can hear
okay,
you.
I'm sorry. So that during that period of time, we met, and we formed a group of friends. Haifa is on the beach. In the summertime, we went to the beach and had a good time. In the winter, we climbed Mount Carmel, was beautiful, and picked flowers, or celebrated, or went to eat falafel or whatever, something light, we befriended. And eventually, we fell in love with each other and we got married. The day that I got married, my mother says to me, Rifka, I want to give you something from our house in Hungary. I looked at her like, are you kidding me? What did you have from our house in Hungary that you didn't tell me about it, or my brother? She said, sit down and wait a minute. And she went and she got a scroll, and I opened the scroll, as you can see, and it's written in Hebrew, Hear, O Israel, you have one God, and you should remember God when you walk out of your house and when you come back, and you should keep God close to your heart and close to your mind. That parchment is the biggest treasure that my mother could have given me. She said, when I knew they'll come for us, I don't know if you ever saw a mezuzah, and most Jewish home, they have a mezuzah. This is a mezuzah. They're different shapes and different forms. This is a mezuzah. You see? They come in different forms and shapes. And the parchment is, you see it's cut in the back, and the parchment is inside. And it's written in Hebrew, what I just read to you. And usually, they would put it on a doorpost when you enter the house at an angle like this. And when you enter the house, if you have ever been to a Jewish home, not all of us, but most of us have it on the door. And when you enter the house, you kiss it, you touch it, and when you leave the house, it's a custom. And most Jewish people have it also on their living room and on the bedroom doors. Small ones, there are small ones and big ones. My mother gave me this parchment, it was unbelievable. I said, Mom, how did you have it? I said, I knew that they'll come for us. I took the mezuzah off the doorpost. I took the parchment, I left the casing, put it away, and I sewed the parchment into the lining of my coat. So nobody knew where it was. And I saved it for you for the day that you get married, that you will put it up in your house. And indeed, I did, but I wouldn't put it on the outside door. I kept it inside. I was worried that maybe it's too big and somebody may knock it off the door, and I didn't want it to disappear. This mezuzah that you saw there today hangs in my daughter's house, and eventually it will go from her. She has 3 beautiful children, all wonderful kids, and it will go from one child to the next. And this is the treasure that I forwarded to them. And it's very wonderful. We raised them right. When I got married, we came to the United States, and we eventually adopted 2 children. And they are grown up, and my daughter has 3 beautiful kids. And that's my treasure, the biggest treasure that I have. And I'm eternally grateful that I survived. It's not easy, but I can never forget. Can never forget. And once again, thank you so much for listening, and I will be happy to answer questions if anybody has a question. It's not a problem. And I will say to all of you, the word shalom means peace, and it's the common greeting in Israel. You go, you say shalom when you come in, you say shalom when you go out, and We just befriend each other this way. Thank you so much for hearing my story.
Thank you so much. Our students are so beyond excited to meet you. So we're going to come up one at a time. Those of you who have questions, if you please make the queue go that way. So
Just
let's-
one more thing that I have to say, I forgot. I have a book here. This book is a very heavy book.
I'll
And
look it for you.
Yes, but don't hold it yet.
Okay.
1 second.
Okay.
Before we go with that, I forgot almost about the book. 6 million, this number permanently etched into the Jewish consciousness. Say the number to anyone, and the immediate association will be the Holocaust. 6 million Jews were killed by the Nazis and their collaborators. There are museums like Yad Vashem. There are days like Yom HaShoah. There are special programs, lectures, and pictures that we did just now. Sometimes we need to focus our thoughts. The entire book contains only one word, and the word is a Jew. It appears in 40 columns, 120 lines in every one of the 625 sheets, 1,250 pages. Each page has 4,800 Jews on it. There are 6 million Jews in this book. Betty will pick it up because I cannot.
It shows the enormity of those people whose lives were lost. Every 2 out of 3 people did not survive. And yet there are 6 million words in here, each representing an individual, a Jew, who was murdered during the Holocaust. It's hard to wrap your hands or your arms or your mind around the number 6 million. But when you take a look at this book, and I'm going to flip some pages, you can see how many people were actually murdered. But when you hear the story of Rifka, she's one person who survived, and yet 6 million did not. So you can see and feel how it affected so many different individuals. And each of those 6 million, of which 1.5 million were children, had families and loved ones who will never see them again.
And what was their sin in life? The only thing was that they were born Jewish. We never proselytized. We never tried to convert anybody to Judaism. We never preached that our religion is better than your religion. We lived our life, and we respected everybody else's choice or the way they were born and the way they were raised. And I don't know why the hatred. What causes that kind of hatred by people to cause such grief? It's unimaginable.
People who are anti-Jewish are anti-everything, anti-all others who are different from you. And so it's really important to understand that this is just one example of how horrible hatred is.
It's the heaviest book I have in my life. So,
Okay, so please line up here for questions. Let's go.
During the day, what was it like in the concentration camps?
it was horrendous. We were not allowed outside the barracks, only for counting. Every day, they marched us out of the barracks, and we were counted. And that took a little time because there were so many people, and the counting depended also on the weather, whether it was nice or bad. But we were in the barracks, and the children tried to play with each other if they could. There were different ages, you know. And The mothers were there. I was with my mother, and the sad part about it that we couldn't see my brother because he was with a man, and there were barbed wire fences between the two camps. So until we were liberated, we did not see my brother. Life was not easy. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
What were you and your family's reaction to when the Holocaust started?
To the Holocaust, what?
Like when the Holocaust started, what were you and your family's reaction?
We were horrified. We were horrified, and we knew that eventually they managed to kill most of the Polish Jews. They entered Poland in 1939. They came to Hungary in 1944. So we were the last, really, country that they entered. And yet they managed to kill so many of us also. It was horrific. People couldn't understand and they didn't know what to do. And there were nowhere else to go. We didn't have relatives in the United States or relatives in someplace else that we could go. And no country in Europe was safe for the Jews. So it was horrendous. Thank you so much.
I'm Allie.
Hi, Ali.
I have a question. You said that you and your husband moved to America, but why?
We moved to America really for him to study. And eventually he had a job here and we decided to stay. But we are very close to Israel and we visited quite often because we have family, we still have family in Israel. But my husband studied aeronautical engineering and he got a job here and we stayed in the United States. Thank you.
My name is Gage.
Hi, Gage. Nice to meet you.
What were your earliest memories of anti-Semitism?
Can you repeat that so everybody can hear the question?
Sorry. What were your earliest memories of anti-Semitism?
The fact that we had to wear a sign that we are Jews, that my mother wouldn't allow us out of the courtyard in Hungary by ourselves, the fact that each child had to have a Jewish star, flag or whatever, to point out that you are Jewish. So if somebody wants to curse at you or spit on you or whatever, we were the targets. So it was frightening. It was really frightening. Thank you so much.
Hello, Mrs. Glatz.
Hello.
I am Aubrey Weber. My question for you is, when were you first aware of the Nazi regime?
When my father was taken to forced labor camp. And maybe a little bit earlier, but I was so young. I was in kindergarten, I was so young when we had to move to Kolozsvár from Debrecen, where we live. So I realized that there is a problem. There are problems, and my mother was watching us and making sure that my brother gets to school on time and comes back from school and that we are safe. So I realized right early, and she wouldn't let us out of the courtyard to go outside to the street for fear that, God forbid, somebody is going to create something. So it was frightening, but I was so young, that I didn't even know what I was thinking. You're welcome.
How did the Holocaust influence your faith?
The Holocaust strengthened my faith in Judaism because in our history, I don't recall any such atrocities. And I was always learned to love and care. And when I came to Israel, in spite of all that happened, we were taught to love, to care, and we had a lot of mixtures of Arabs and Israelis living together, side by side. And we were always taught to respect other people, not to try to preach or to try to influence somebody to turn what we respected everybody's religion and everybody's upbringing. But really, really, we were never taught to hate. And I grew up in Israel as a loving person, and I never felt any hatred while living there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, nice to meet you.
When you were at the camp, did you form any friendships?
Not really. I mean, here and there you say hello to this, to that. I was just very attached to my mother. I wanted to make sure that I always see her, that I'm always near her. I knew we were in a frightening situation, even though I was so young. But we were, by and large, in the barracks. You saw the barracks. Unbelievable. And thank God we survived. We got minimal amount of food, but we got something to eat each day. So at least we survived the camp. Thank you so much. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
I have two questions for you today.
Speak louder so they can hear you.
I have two questions for you today. My first question is, if you had a chance to go back today, what was something that you would change?
Go back where?
Go back to any time, like during the Holocaust, when you were in the camps, and
I could never understand the hatred. I could never understand how a population in Europe accepted the hatred and helped the Nazis. It's incomprehensible to me. And that's very difficult for me to understand how they allowed it to happen.
so my second question for you is, you said that you had to wear the little star thing on your shirt, the yellow thing.
Yeah.
What if you didn't wear that?
What?
What if you didn't wear the yellow star?
I don't know. My mother felt that maybe I would be arrested or taken, or it was something that my brother wore it every day to school, and I had wore it to kindergarten, and my mother wore it also on her shirt.
Well, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, honey. Nice to talk to you. Shalom.
I'm Katie. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
My question is, whenever the Nazis were coming into power and were in power, did you have any non-Jewish friends?
I did not. I didn't know anybody. I was so young. Don't forget, I was barely 6 years old, you know. And I was sent in the synagogue to a kindergarten. So I really didn't have, aside from the neighbors, you know, some of the neighbors, we were friends, but not really close friends, but played a little bit together in the courtyard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did your brother have any non-Jewish friends? Do you know?
I don't recall.
Yeah.
I don't recall, unless, as I said, unless they were in the courtyard, you know, where we lived.
Hello.
Hi.
What did you like to do before you were in the camps?
Oh, I like to dance. I like to exercise a little bit, and by and large, draw some pictures, you know, at home, and do some craft work in the house. But I was never outside. My mother wouldn't let me go outside unless she was with me. And I used to go food shopping with her, you know. But she was always by my side. She made sure that she sees me. But by and large, that was all that I could do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you like to do now? You like to dance?
I like to dance, but I don't dance anymore. Shalom. Nice to meet you too.
How has this experience affected you as a person?
Well, it affected me very strongly as a person, and I cannot stand by when I see something you know, not nice happening. I speak out, and I don't like to see signs of hatred or signs of misbehavior or signs of, you know, I'm talking in misbehavior that hurts somebody else. I cannot tolerate it. And I think we all need to respect each other for who we are and be friends. And that's what I learned in Israel, really, is to like each other, to be friendly, and to respect each other. And you have to accept everybody for who they are, without harassment, without trying to force yourself upon them.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Hi, nice to meet you.
What were your biggest challenges when going through the Holocaust?
My biggest challenges was that we were closed into a barrack, you know, we just saw the beds. The biggest challenges was, what are we doing? What are we learning? You know, I missed my kindergarten. I missed going to first grade. So it was not easy. It was not easy between all those beds and between all those adults that were crying and obviously lost some family members and worried about whether they'll survive or their children will survive. It was very hard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Are you still in contact with the family at the Swedish hotel?
What, which family?
The family that you met at the Swedish hotel that you guys went to?
At the Swiss. No, I no longer. We came to Israel and I am in contact with one of the girls, Naomi, and her brother. We were close friends, and he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. So when I'm in Israel, I get in touch with her. And of course, I get in touch with the family that I still have who survived the war.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
When you were in the camp, did anybody show kindness towards you, or did they try and help you?
I'm sorry?
When you were in the camp, did anybody show kindness towards you, or did they try and help you?
The residents who were in the hotel, the Jewish people who were in the hotel, they always showed kindness to the kids, you know. They respected that there were quite a few young children among the group, and they showed care and love. But the Nazis, I can't say that. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Throughout the entire events of the Holocaust, how did you find the ability to maintain hope throughout it?
How did I maintain
Hope.
hope? I was too young at the time to think about it as deeply as you think about it as an adult. I was still a young child, you know. I was 6 years old, 6.5 years old, you know. But I don't know what kind of hope I had, but I was hoping that we'll survive and we'll get out of the camp. That was the most important thing, is to get out of the camp. And I remember us marching out of the camp. And that was a real big liberation. And then put onto regular, you know, first on cattle cars, then they brought us to the border of Switzerland and put us in a regular train, you know, so it was quite a different.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Do you remember some emotions you felt during the concentration camp?
Yes, of course I remember. I remember fear. I was worried about my mother, that she's good, she's okay. I was worried about what happened to my father and where we are and why we are here, you know. You can imagine, if God forbid that happened to any one of you, what you would feel. Why? What did we do that we deserve this kind of treatment? None of us were murderers, none of us were needed to be arrested for doing something wrong. We were normal citizens of the country. The only difference was that we were Jewish and they were not. And that's not right. Every religion should learn to teach their children to care and to respect other people. You don't have to convert to Judaism. We never forced anybody to convert. And we never preached to convert anybody to Judaism. And in fact, if somebody decides to convert to Judaism and goes to a rabbi, and the rabbi asks, did somebody force you? Are you doing it on yourself? If they say that somebody requested it, he will not convert you. That has to come from within you. So we don't preach, we don't try to convert anybody. We are who we are, and we respect everybody for who they are. But we need to learn to live with care and love, no matter what.
I understand. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, honey. Hi.
I was wondering, what did you eat at the game?
Whatever they gave us, it was sometimes some vegetables and sometimes some bread and something to drink. And basically minimal amount of food twice a day, and that's it.
Thank you.
Food was not in abundance, that's for sure. You're welcome. Hi, Sydney.
What were your emotions while being liberated?
I couldn't believe that we were liberated. It was very hard to believe that we were finally liberated. But once we got onto a normal train and we are on our way to the port of Italy to get into a ship to go to Palestine, then we felt that we were finally liberated. But the truth be told, when we got to Palestine, Israel didn't exist yet. So it wasn't exactly a total liberation because we were under the control of the Palestinians. But we arrived to Israel in 1945, and in 1948, Israel was established. So finally, we gained our freedom. You're welcome. Nice to meet you too.
I was wondering, did you ever expect something like the Holocaust to happen?
No. First of all, I was a young child. So you can't imagine something like this unless you see it for yourself. That much of an imagination I didn't have. So it was a total shock and a total disbelief that everything was taken away from us. And to this day, I see this picture of me standing outside of our courtyard, outside our house, and somebody brings a big piece of wood and puts it diagonally across the door, bangs it in, this was yours, and now it's ours. That picture will never leave my mind. How everything was taken away from us.
Thank you.
You're welcome, honey. Nice to meet you.
How often do you think about what happened?
Many times. It comes back, memories come back. It's not something that you forget. Especially around the holidays, and especially when you think back of your childhood, it always comes back.
Thank you.
And days like Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Memorial Day, always brings back the memories. And I speak in a lot of schools, so that I think about it quite often.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How was
Hadassah? Oh, that's a nice Hebrew name.
Thank you. How was life like for you and your mother after the Holocaust?
It was not easy. My mother was in the city of Haifa in a hotel for women, and she started to work as a chef. And I was in the kibbutz by myself, which was a distance away. It wasn't something that you could take a bus and you are there right away. We were quite a distance away from each other. I saw her twice a year. So we were separated. But the kibbutz, they took wonderful care of us. And I was like any other child in the kibbutz because the children in the kibbutz stayed in dormitories, not with their parents. So I was with a group of 4 girls in a room, and aside from being, there were caretakers that took care of the children, and the bathrooms and the showers were at the end of the building. So we were wonderfully taken care of, and the children ate in the children's dining room, not with the adults. So I didn't have this experience of the kids sitting with their parents and I'm sitting by myself. I don't have a parent in the kibbutz. It was wonderful. They really took wonderful care of us, and it was really a blessing after what we went through. So I'm eternally grateful for them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
What would happen if someone tries to escape the camp?
If somebody tried to escape out of the camp, they will shoot them. For sure. You're welcome. Yes.
My name's Avery. What made you want to share your story with everyone?
I felt that while we are still alive, and I am 87 years old now, while we are still alive, and you learn about the history of the Holocaust, that it's my obligation, if they ask me to speak, to share my story, so that you learn from it, so that you can teach it to your children. By that time, I won't be alive, most likely. So it cannot be forgotten, because it was such a horrendous piece of history. And I to this day cannot understand how the German government allowed Hitler to do this, how the German people allowed Hitler to do what he did. Shame on them. You're welcome. Hi. Hi.
What's your favorite part about living in Switzerland?
Well, the favorite part of living in Switzerland is number one, the care that they gave us. Number two, the food and the beautiful atmosphere, and they took us, the kids, to the mountains to do some exercise and to feel free, and the freedom that we had, not being locked up in a barrack. And Switzerland is a very beautiful country, and forever, forever, I'll keep it to my heart, close to my heart, because they did a real, real good deed. In Hebrew we say they did a mitzvah. A mitzvah is a real good deed by helping us as Holocaust survivors to enter Switzerland and putting us in the hotel for European royalty, which is amazing. I didn't know that at the time, I was a child, but when I visited with my husband and they told me that, I almost couldn't believe it. And of course, when I went back to the back of the hotel and saw the sign, the plaque that they put in memory of all those Jews that they saved, it was amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for visiting us today. We are honored by your presence, and this has been extremely meaningful for all of us. I would like all of us to show a big round of applause.
I applaud you for learning and listening, and just remain to be who you are and respect others for who they are, as long as they behave, as long as they treat you right. But speak up if something is wrong. It's so important. And I wish you all the best and a wonderful year, success in school, and I will end with the word shalom.
Shalom.
To all of you.